Hello and welcome to this edition of Judicial Watch's Inside Special Reports. I'm your host, Jerry Dunleavy, Digital Strategist at Judicial Watch, and today we're on Capitol Hill. We are going to talk a little bit about the Department of Justice's Inspector General report and more about what Congress is doing to oversee the Department of Justice and the FBI. And so joining me today is Congressman Jim Jordan of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committee and from the great state of Ohio's 4th Congressional District. So thanks for joining me today, sir.
Your state as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's my state also, so great state. So, Congressman, I want to talk to you today to get your thoughts on the Department of Justice's Inspector General report, 500-page report that dropped last week, outlining the conduct of the Department of Justice and the FBI, mainly focusing on 2016 and the
egregious conduct. Right?
Yeah. Well, so talk with me a little bit about sort of the big takeaways from the Inspector General's report, if you would.
Well, I mean, an unbelievable amount of bias from the key people who ran the Clinton investigation and then went on the Russian investigation team. So you look at the top people at the FBI. James Comey, former director, has been fired from the FBI. Andy McCabe, deputy director at the FBI, fired, faces criminal referral. According to the Inspector General, lied 3 times under oath. Chief of Staff Jim Rubicki has left the FBI. Chief Counsel Jim Baker was demoted and then left the FBI. Lisa Page, FBI counsel, was demoted and then left the FBI. And then, of course, Peter Strzok, deputy head of counterintelligence, was demoted and was just escorted out of the FBI just a few days ago. So these are the key top 6 people, I mean, important players in the FBI. They all were the key players in the Clinton investigation, all key players in the Russian investigation, and they've either been fired, demoted, left, reassigned. I've never seen anything like that. So, and my guess is, all the great work that Judicial Watch has done over the years, and your time here in Washington, D.C., you've probably never seen any federal agency where the top people had that happen to them. And those same top people were the key players in the 2 biggest investigations the Department of Justice probably did in the last couple of years.
It is a pretty shocking result. So talk with me about what the Inspector General found in terms of, because all of these people ended up leaving. So obviously there was a lot. There's a lot there. So talk to me a little bit about what the IG found.
Yeah.
And then maybe what you think was maybe left
I heard
unsaid.
someone say it this way, and it's probably a pretty apt comparison. They said the Inspector General's report was kind of like Comey's July 5th press conference. Remember where Comey laid out all the negative things, wrong things that Secretary Clinton did with her email server and all the things that were wrong. And then at the end he says, but oh, by the way, no one would prosecute this case, and we're not going to either. Same sort of thing happened with Mr. Horowitz's report, and I think Michael did a great job. It was very thorough. He answered all the right questions, and he said he showed all the bias that existed, particularly between Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, but also FBI Attorney number 2, someone we didn't really know about until this report came out. All the bias they had, the animus, some would say hatred they had of President Trump, and yet he points this all out, shows how bad it was, shows how wrong it was, says it was wrong, said there needs to be some disciplinary action taken at the FBI. But then at the end he says, you know what, though, we do not think this bias impacted the decisions of the prosecutors in the end when they chose not to prosecute Secretary Clinton. So that was a little odd, I think, at the end. But overall, I give the Inspector General high marks for digging into and exposing the bias. And probably the best example is, remember, the Russian investigation gets opened up on July 31st, 2016. 1 week later, August 6th, Peter Strzok says, I can help my country on many levels. 2 days after that, we have the now famous text message where he says, we will stop Trump. And 1 week after that, on August 15th, is the text about, we have an insurance policy. So think about it. They open up the Russian investigation on President Trump, and within the next 15 days, he's saying, I can help my country on many levels. We will stop him. He's not going to be elected because we have an insurance policy. That is scary, particularly when you're talking about the deputy head of the counterintelligence and you're talking about the individual who was the guy who ran the Clinton investigation on a daily basis and was the lead investigator on the Russian investigation.
Pretty surprising stuff. And the Inspector General, I think, outlined quite a bit that he sort of had the same sort of take on what Strzok and Page were were saying and how.
Remember the earlier text, earlier in the Trump in the campaign, when it looks like President Trump is going to be the nominee, they say Trump's awful, Trump's an idiot, Trump's a bleeping idiot. There's no way he should win. Hillary should win 100 million to 0. So the extreme bias they had is there. It's one thing to say things like that, but it's another thing to say we will stop him. It's one thing to say Trump's awful, but it's different when you say we will stop him, and you're making that statement just 8 days after you've opened up an investigation into President Trump, the Russian investigation. So that to me was where I sort of missed the sort of was the disconnect. All this bias, yes, but you said it didn't impact decisions. But remember, Trump's awful is one kind of statement. Another kind of statement is you say that he said was we will stop him. So that to me was where I think many Americans are asking, really, how could the bias not have impacted the final decisions?
So you brought up an interesting point there, is that the IG report focused mainly on the Clinton email investigation, but all of the same major players that are mentioned in the IG report ended up being a lot of the main players, at least at the start, in the Trump-Russia investigation that was launched. So that wasn't covered in the IG report very much, although it's my understanding perhaps that's coming as well.
There are other reports they're working on. They're working on whether Comey, leaked classified information. And the Inspector General confirmed that. That's an investigation going on. The one that I really am, I think is going to be important for us all to see is when he does his report on potential abuses of the FISA process, where that's where we'll get into. Because this is, remember, Peter Strzok, Deputy Head of Counterintelligence, and we know that the FBI took the dossier, they dressed it all up, took it to the FISA court, and used it to get a warrant to spy on a fellow American. And when they went to the court, they didn't tell the court two important facts. Number one, they didn't tell the court who paid for the dossier, the Clinton campaign. And just as importantly, they didn't tell the court the guy who wrote the document, Christopher Steele, had been fired by the FBI because he was out leaking information. So you and I go to court, Jerry, we got to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The FBI should have to do the same darn thing. And they didn't do it when they went to the FISA court. And never forget, this is a secret court where you get secret warrants to go spy on people. They didn't tell them important information. And so that's the kind of stuff that I want to see that report when Mr. Horowitz completes it on what kind of abuse took place in the FISA application, FISA process when they went to the court.
And actually on that issue, that's something that Judicial Watch has actually been fighting for as well. We filed FOIA lawsuits for the FISA applications, FISA warrants, the hearing transcripts, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court decisions. So it's definitely something that we're in court battling for as well. Let's take just one really quick step back. So what we know now about the alleged FISA abuses and that sort of thing is very different than maybe what we knew even just a year ago. So can you just give me a brief sort of summary on the dossier and also the problems with it and the problems with what we know now, and then what are we still trying to find? What is still left to know?
Well, you're right. The best thing we could do is for them to give us the application. Now, they're going to say classified, and I get that, but members of Congress have a clearance as well. We're the Judiciary Committee. I said on the Judiciary Committee, we have primary jurisdiction over the Justice Department. Constitutionally, we're supposed to do oversight of the Justice Department. If, in fact, the Justice Department did what I just described, and everything points to the fact that they did, if they took a opposition research document that was paid for by the Clinton campaign, who paid the law firm, who paid Christopher Steele, who most likely paid Russians to get that information, if that was the information they took to the court and didn't tell the court that payment process, who was all behind it, and then also didn't tell the court that the guy who wrote it, Christopher Steele, that's important information. So we need to find out if in fact that happened, and it sure looks like it did. So that to me is the biggest concern. There's also the concern that we've had overall with the FBI and the DOJ of not just giving us other information. There's two subpoenas. Chairman Goodlatte, Chairman Nunes have issued subpoenas to the Justice Department that they have not complied with. We have caught the FBI hiding information from us. We use the example of, we caught the FBI in the documents they gave us redacting in a conversation between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. They redacted the conversation where they discussed Peter Strzok's friendship with Judge Contreras, one of the FISA court judges, who also happened to be the federal judge who presided over Mike Flynn's case. Why was that? That's not classified. They just didn't want us to know because it was embarrassing information. They were trying to hide it from us. And then finally, what we've caught the Justice Department doing, according to news accounts, is Rod Rosenstein, head of the Justice Department on this whole area, was threatening staff members on the House Intelligence Committee. That is as wrong as it gets as well. So all this just underscores why we need to get the information you guys are looking for, we're looking for, so we can get answers.
So talk to me about the subpoenas that are still outstanding that you're trying to get information on. What are you trying to get, and what response are you getting from the Justice Department so far?
We're getting the old slow roll, the old, like, it's just difficult. It's like pulling teeth to get anything from them. But we've asked for information in the Chairman Goodlatte subpoena, which I'm more familiar with because I'm on the Judiciary Committee and not on Intelligence Committee. We asked for stuff, documents related to Clinton investigation, documents related to the FISA process, documents related to even initially letters and correspondence we sent to the Justice Department on the whole Uranium One Clinton Foundation issue. Our primary focus now is, though, the connection and link, like the Inspector General's report got into, between folks on the Clinton investigation who moved over to the Russian investigation and how that was launched, how that was started, and what took place before Special Counsel Mueller took over. So that's what we're asking for. They're not complying. The good news is the Speaker has weighed in and is pushing harder now. We think there will be compliance, but frankly, if there isn't, Mr. Meadows and I and some others introduced a resolution last week, which would be a sense of the House resolution saying, Mr. Rosenstein, if you don't give us what we're asking for, the House will go on record saying, we need this information by a certain date. And then if you don't comply, then I think it's a time and it's appropriate for contempt and possible impeachment proceedings to begin.
So when it comes to Rod Rosenstein, the deputy AG, because Attorney General Sessions has recused himself, we've talked a bit about sort of the period of the Trump-Russia investigation before Mueller. As I close out here, what information are you trying to get from Rosenstein, and what information are you trying to get about the ongoing Mueller investigation?
Well, let me do the second one first. Remember, on May 17th, 2017, Rod Rosenstein writes the one-page memo to naming the special counsel and authorizing the special counsel investigation, and Robert Mueller as the guy who's going to lead that. He modifies that initial statement and scope of the investigation. He modifies that on August 2nd, 2017. One of the things we would like to see is that unredacted August 2nd memo. Remember, the only part, we've only seen about 30% of that deals with Paul Manafort. All the rest has been redacted. And our attitude is the August 2nd memo modified the initial charge of Special Counsel Mueller. The American people have a right to know the full parameter, the full scope of any investigation into the individual they elected president. And Rod Rosenstein says no. And we're saying, yes, they do. And frankly, so Congressman Meadows and I have sent a letter to Mr. Rosenstein saying, we want to see, we call it the August 2nd scope memo. We want to see that because we think it modifies the parameters of the investigation. And we have a right to know what is the framework, what is the overall parameters in investigation into the President of the United States. Last time I checked, Rod Rosenstein's name was never put on a ballot, but mine is every 2 years. There are 435 members of Congress who go on a ballot and answer to the people. We have a right to see that information so we can convey it to our constituents.
So my final question then is what level of success do you see yourself having here? I mean, you're moving towards the sense of the House and that sort of thing. Do you see movement from the Department of Justice?
Yeah.
Do you see
it's
this,
just always
this
slow.
working? Yeah.
We do, but frankly, we're running out of patience, and if they're not going to do what they should do to get us the information constitutionally we're supposed to have to do our job, then we will proceed with that sequence I just described. But understand the pattern too. Every time they've thrown up, oh, we can't show you this, ongoing investigation, classified information, and then we ultimately get the document, guess what? Wasn't that bad after all. It really wasn't classified. It was just embarrassing to the department. So that's sort of been the pattern. And now, kind of like when they say, oh, they throw up the same thing. Oh, we can't show you that because of an ongoing investigation, because it's classified. It's sort of like the boy who cried wolf. We don't have a whole lot of trust that you're actually being square with this because we've seen the pattern before. Maybe they are at some point, and if it is, we don't want classified information to get out there. But we do think we need this to do our job as a separate and equal branch of government charged with oversight of the executive branch. And if you're not going to give us the information, at some point we're going to have to do the sense of Congress resolution, move to contempt, move to impeachment, because that's the only remedy the Constitution gives us.
Well, we do appreciate that sort of oversight work, because Judicial Watch, we have FOIA lawsuits as well that we're fighting in court for the same for the scope memo. We're fighting in court for all this FISA information as well. So thank you, Congressman, for talking with me briefly today, and thank you very much for joining us.
Let me say one last thing. You guys have been great. But for the work on, I mean, I was in the middle of this when the IRS was targeting conservative groups. I mean, some of the information you guys got us, we didn't get. We got it from you because you guys pushed so hard. So I didn't want to miss the chance to thank you for the great work you guys do.
Well, thank you, Congressman, and do keep up the good oversight work. We do appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Congressman, for being with us. I'm Jerry Dunleavy for Judicial Watch. Thank you very much.